just, man, super excited. Not that I wasn't excited about other people, but I've never had the chance to spend time around her. But what I did notice when I looked at her bio and resume is that she's certainly a coach of influence, and you can see it through record and the way that she represents herself, and just a few people that I've kind of connected with that know her, man, she's got an amazing reputation. And you can see what I love too is we all want to win as coaches, but what I've heard about her, which I think is amazing, is that she's transforming lives, and by the way, she wins tons of games. So really excited to hear what you have to share with us. So thanks for coming, Kristi. Give it up.
That was very generous. Thank you, Kelly. And I feel grateful to be here. I have some notes so I stay on track because I want to make sure I stay within my time slot. But I am glad to be here. I came to the first one in Nashville. I think those of you that were in the panel in the room last night that I was in, and I think there were 25 of us. Rachel, you were there. Connor, I think. So it was a smaller group, and it's really fun to see the growth. An author I like wrote a book titled Bread and Wine, A Love Letter to Life Around the Table. And she says this: it's not actually strictly about food for me. It's about what happens when we come together, slow down, open our homes, look into one another's faces, and listen to one another's stories. And I think for me, for our program, it's a lot about being around the table. That's like our culture. And I think that's what she's saying. And I love what Martin was talking about earlier in terms of identity. It was a lot of self-reflection. This is like the other side of that. It's the willingness. I heard somebody say once, I think she was a therapist by trade, but everybody makes sense in the context of their story. And again, Martin's like talking about figuring out your own story. I think for me, in terms of culture and how you relate in a team environment, it's figuring out other people's stories and what makes them tick. And this weekend's full of that. I feel like I've heard a lot of good stories. I hope to share some, and I think that's a lot of what I'll do. In fact, I was telling somebody else, I wish I could just sit here and you could ask some questions, because I think I would enjoy that piece. I'm trying to touch on culture, which I think is a somewhat difficult and complex topic to address. So a little bit about me real quick. I've been coaching about 18 years at a few different levels, a few different types of institutions. I love what I do. I really love growth. Whenever I get asked the question nowadays, why are you still coaching as it's changed so much? I think the answer always undoubtedly is growth. I love watching people do it. I love celebrating it. I love creating an environment where it can happen. I love that piece of it. I have 2 kids and a husband. I was actually watching my son's game back there for a second. He's a little footballer, baseball player. My daughter's a dancer. My husband's a teacher, and we've been married for a long time. And then maybe real quick, I don't know, for those of you, anybody operate in StrengthsFinder or done it even? Okay, I love StrengthsFinder because it gives your team a common language to use. So just because I feel like I am probably not as connected to you in the room, it'll just give you a little insight into me and maybe why I might share the things that I share. So I call mine a revolving 7 for your top 5 because I take it so often. I do it with my team. So my top 5 are achiever, learner, responsibility, and then the revolving ones are individualization, developer, arranger, and strategic. And so I got a lot of execution and relational in there, some strategy, a little bit less influence, which is great. Now I know I have to bring leaders in who can help with that side of things, some of the things that I lack. My hope in the next 25 to 30, I'd love to leave some time for questions, but I hope that I'll be able to do that, is that you're able to, or that I'm able to accomplish. Honestly, it's really came in your first day with the questions. What does it feel like to be coached by me? Why do I coach the way that I do? Are a lot of the questions that I hope you'll leave with from our time. I do love talking about culture. When they asked me to talk about this, I was pretty excited because I enjoy creating it for myself. That's something that I find a lot of energy in. I love working with people when they're trying to create theirs. When a coach calls and has a question, or when a coach is starting out and they call, I love to field those phone calls. I think that's happened later in my career. When there are dilemmas within your culture, I actually like to problem solve that. And so I really enjoy it. And so does this guy who we heard from earlier. I think I'm supposed to use the clicker thing. I didn't do that very well.
I think people look at Brentford from the outside and seem to have an opinion about how you've done what you've done and how you've had the success you've had. What are we not seeing that you see that you think has really made the difference here?
There's a few narratives about Brentford. Most of them are positive, and there's a lot about the numbers games and all the marketing games, which is also part of it. But I think a really secret sauce, or what you call it, is the people in the club. And we know it's people that create the culture, and the culture, eat strategy for breakfast. So culture beats everything. And that culture we have built together over years is, in my opinion, quite incredible. We have a lot of good people, staff, directors, players that are working together in the same direction. I don't think I'm okay good at something, but I think what I'm best at is to have good people around me. And then I learn. I think I'm good to learn, good at learning. So I'm reading and speaking to people and all that. So from the All Blacks, I stole that one line.
Cut it from there. But culture matters. And I think you're here because you believe that to be true as well. But I think it's worth giving a lot of time to. So I think the first thing I'd love to do is define it. Anybody want to take a crack at what that means for them? How would you define culture?
Behavior around a set of values.
Behavior around a set of values. Echo that. Yes, Steve?
Something that lives on after you're gone.
Bit of legacy. Something that lives on after you're gone, if you didn't hear that. Anybody else? Yeah.
To me, it reminds me of like environment and the
Yeah.
vibe. How people feel.
Yeah, I read somebody said it's just the way we do things around here. Yeah, Sean.
It's like a shared set of norms.
Yeah. Same things. I read somewhere, in an organization, culture refers to the shared values, beliefs, practices, and behaviors that shape how employees think, feel, and act. That was one way. For me, it's our way of being in our program. It is the way that we do life. And I want to tell you a little bit about what that is for us. Again, hoping you can make it maybe resonate for you. For me, and therefore for Point Loma Women's Soccer right now, it is the pursuit of excellence mixed with the deep care and investment in people. That is the lens through which we see everything. For the purposes of this, that is what I chose to do. When I talk about it with my players, I say we're going to demand much on the field and we're going to care about each other in deep and meaningful ways off of it. And those are the two. If you do nothing more than those two things, great. So that's how we operate in our program. It's what gets me up in the morning. It's what I love to do. It's why when I'm sitting maybe in church, I might steal something that the pastor says, or why when I'm watching a movie, if it relates to that, or if I'm watching, a national team game, I might pause a clip there because of something that they did. That's what drives me. And I do want to say, I want to be really clear. I think you can be a person of faith and still have this as your goal. I mean, not a person of faith and still have this as your goal. I think my faith is why I do it the way that I do. And I hope that is maybe something you can take away. We get these in the college game. We get these athletes for 4 to 5 years, which is now on the table. Who knows what that will actually look like. And I think the Lord has designed, He's ordained this intersection at this time. I think the question that I often ask myself is what I'm doing in those 4 to 5 years making them more whole, more complete? Is that culture, is the way that we say what we're doing, the way that I go about that pursuing of excellence and the deep care, is that making them more whole, more complete? I am using soccer and team life to try and help shape them, to prepare them, alongside other people that are involved in what they do, faculty, parents, friends, to make them better. The table matters for me because I found Jesus to be around the table a lot. And He's around with a wide variety of people, having a wide variety of conversation, and there's a lot of things that go on at the table. I think there's laughter. I think there are jokes. I think there are things that are fun and enjoyable, and there's love and there's care, and I think there is healing and restoration and reconciliation and things that happen within your culture because it's complex. You are dealing with human lives, and at the table, those things happen. So for us, it's really important. However, I would argue that for mainstream, it's also important, as evidenced by this player at Boston College after their team exited March Madness.
What's your best memory from playing basketball at Boston College?
Probably just like going out to eat.
I loved that. That is what his takeaway is being around the table. And I don't know what took place at that table, but for him, that is his takeaway. Not the trophies or the medals or those pieces. I'm sure they're a piece of it, but the table mattered. I also found this one, which was a little bit less clear, but still powerful. Well, you can't hear it, but she's referencing her time, and she's talking about, yes, I've played in a few national championship games, but man, it's the bus rides. It's the meals out to eat. Like, that's the stuff that she references. And so for me, there's a lot of culture happening around the table. So I'm going to talk about that for a quick second. Our campus chaplain at a school that I worked at talked about holy time wasting. And I love that idea of, I don't need something from you, I just want to be with you. And if we can do that with our players, which is hard because we're all in different contexts for what that looks like and what our time with them looks like. When I think about this room, I think high school, club, college, pro. I think about the amount of time you have with players, how you communicate with players, or do you have to deal with a parent or an agent? All those pieces make it different, so I hope you can relate it to your environment. But the holy time wasting piece, so we take a day before the season starts, and we come together and I do a retreat for our seniors. And I tell them at the beginning of the day, this is holy time wasting. I don't have an agenda. I have things I'd like to get through that I think will better you for life beyond. StrengthsFinder is one of them. You can take that now beyond, apply it to your work, or know a little bit more about who you are. But I just want to be here with you for this day. I don't want to need anything from you. I don't want to need your performance, your good. I want you to be present. I'm going to ask you to be present. But I just want to be with you. And that is what I think, again, is the power of the table. We're circled around the table. And then so again, a couple months ago is when I got asked to do this, and that's when I began collecting all the things that I have collected a little bit here over the last couple months. But last week, our pastor then, so I'm going to borrow this from James Kinsler in California, thank you. He was sharing this, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so great. And I think if I timed it, only takes 4 minutes, so I am going to move on with it. But we were in John 21, 1 through 19, and this is post Jesus' death. Peter and Thomas and Nathaniel and a few others they decide they're going to go out to fish. They don't catch any fish. Jesus from shore, they're not sure that it's him at that point. Jesus from shore is like, put it over the right side. And so they do, and then all of a sudden, they have the fish that they weren't able to catch overnight. And on their way back to shore, Peter realizes, dang, that's Jesus. He gets out of the boat, starts running towards him. And I think the specificity of Scripture is really fascinating to me when I catch it, or when somebody else can throw it my way. But in Scripture, it talks about the charcoal burning fire. So Jesus is on the shore with the charcoal burning fire. He's cooking the fish, and he's preparing the breakfast. And they come over, and he's like, come, bring the fish you've caught. Come have breakfast. And then where our pastor kind of connects it for us. And I think senses are so connected to memory, sometimes for good and sometimes for not so good. And for Peter, I just wonder in that moment what that looked like for him, because the last time, at least in Scripture, that we know of that he smelled a charcoal burning fire was outside the priest's home the night of Jesus' arrest, when he denied him. And here Jesus returns to him around a table, with the charcoal fire burning, saying, come, I've made this for you. Bring what you have, but come, I've made this for you. That, like, what healing. Like, if I'm Peter, I'm like disgusted, maybe self-disgust, grief, sadness, feeling guilt, whatever I might feel, and I get there and he's like, I gotcha, I'm back with you, you're good. Didn't need to say it, just said, come, have breakfast. There's so much healing that can go on. And I think in our environments, hopefully we don't need a lot of healing to go on, but I think there are pictures painted for me about restoration so that when you do mess up, because we do, we're imperfect, there's healing that can take place around the table. And this is like a little extra, at least for me, this is something I think I'll be sharing with my team this fall. He went on to say, even better, that Jesus goes, come, bring the fish you've just caught. Like, Jesus didn't need that. He didn't need the fish. He could take care of it if he wanted to, but he said, come. He valued what they were bringing. He valued their contributions. And so for me, I asked myself the question, I actually wrote this down during church, how might I make my gift available to my program? What might I bring that I'm not bringing? How might I bring it to the world and contribute it? And in a time and culture of consumption, how do we teach young people to be contributors? In a time of consumption, how do we teach young people to be contributors? And then you as the leader, and I started just listing the things that I'd want them to bring. How can we teach our players that they should bring their giftings, that they should bring their fish, bring your ideas, your work rate, your honesty, your desire for excellence, your faith, your thoughtfulness, like bring that to our team and make it more whole. Instead of standing in front of them and saying, do these things, begin to ask, what would you like to contribute? What do you have to offer? It's what I love about StrengthsFinder. I had a player who had ideation in her top 5. People with ideation see like A to B, they see a million different ways to get there. Well, for her first 2 years, I felt like she was just questioning me all the time. And I was like, just trust me. I got this. I got you. I got this. But instead, probably in my, Martin, can we talk about that later? I got some things I need to work through about why I felt like she was doubting me. But after I did StrengthsFinder and she had ideation, I was like, oh, shoot. I've been missing it this whole time. Really, I just need to invite her into the conversation, even if I don't think I'm going to use what she brings because I think I've got it formed already. It would be great for her and for me to hear her ideas. And she became a captain, and then I invited her into more conversations, and she helped to change our program. But you have to be willing to allow them to bring their contributions, to bring their fish. Bring their fish, make our breakfast complete. And I love that. So thank you for Pastor James. Okay, next one is praying for a table. So I was at an institution prior to the one I'm at now, and I knew I needed to make a change. And so my husband and I prayed for 4 things specifically. For what we decided was like, okay, let's do that for a month. Let's figure out the things we're going to pray for. We'll do it for a month. We ended up for 6 months doing it. And all 4 ended up being actualized. I hesitate to say that, not because I don't want to share the good things that God's doing, but because I think there are things people pray for a lot longer that honestly are probably a lot more difficult than the things that we needed that aren't answered yet. And so ours were in time, not right away, but one of them, and it might sound silly, but one of them was actually for a table. So in our, at that point, I don't know, 12 years of marriage, we had never had a kitchen table. That's what living in California gets you. Being a coach in California doesn't get you a kitchen table. We lived in a back house, we had small spaces we lived in, and we loved to host the team. We love to have the team over to make sure it's a space that they feel like they can go to. Certainly professionally, I think you have to, when you're very relational and you're working in a faith-based environment, you have to be careful there, but we like to create a space where they can be. That's different than the field, that's different than the moments where, again, you're wanting something from them in terms of their performance, trying to guide them. It's probably not the best way to say it, but we're an environment where they need to contribute more. This is just a space they can be in. And we had never had a kitchen table. Even when we were outside of California, we didn't have a kitchen table. But we kept praying, like, Lord, I'm going to take a major pay cut. My husband was not working. He was raising both of our kids while I was working. And we're moving back to a more expensive state. and we just want a kitchen table, which meant we wanted some space, but Lord, like, we will use that. You know how we'll use that. We've used it without the table before, but could we just have a table? And we found a deal. Randomly, a friend connected us with a person. We live in Point Loma, which is amazing, because we cannot really afford to live in Point Loma. And about a month ago, I was recruiting in Phoenix, and I got a call from a player. And she said, I don't know why, I might get a little weepy, but she said, hey, coach, so-and-so's brother just died, and we don't know what to do. And I said, okay, I am in the airport. I will not be home until about midnight. Here are the things that come to my mind. You know, well, this is a person I think the chaplain for the Wave is a good friend. She's in town. She's spoken to our team. If you were there last night, I was talking about trying to make connections with Devos. She had given a team Devo, so I thought maybe there could be a connection in that way. And I said, is there anyone she's asking for? And she's like, she's asking for you only. And she wants to be at your house. Really, like, she wanted to be around our table. That was a space for her that in that moment, something very, very hard, that is where she wanted to be. We got home, my assistant and I got home at about 1 a.m. She and her roommates were at the house until her flight took off at 7 a.m. the next morning. I don't know why we wanted a table. I mean, I know why, but man, 7 years later, those are some of the things that show up when you create the spaces. And then maybe the last piece of the table, if you're in the college game, what does it mean if you're still playing at Thanksgiving? Anybody? It's good. It means you're in postseason, and often you're like playing well into postseason. Sorry, that was my slide for the prayers around the table. But so this is, honestly, I wanted to be playing at Thanksgiving because I had this vision in my mind. I wanted one long table in my backyard that we could be around. And so this is the picture this year. I look ridiculous. I am so happy. At the end of the table after everyone's eaten, and they lingered for 7 hours, and it was a delightful time of just gathering around the table. I wanted to still be playing because it's fun, and I'm a competitor, and that is part of my job, and I want to pursue excellence, very much so. But I wanted to keep playing because I wanted to do this table. And that's powerful for me. And that's just the way I do it. I've talked a lot about the relational pieces around the table. I also want to talk a little bit about the football because I think it's fun. So on our run in the national tournament in 2023, this is our table, this is the hallway. This is right outside my room. So sometimes at hotels, when you're catering, they won't let you bring it into like your scout room unless you pay a lot of money, and we don't have the luxury of doing that. So our table is the hallway. And this is a player who, we have no technology in certain spaces of our team life. Like no negotiating there. On the bus for a certain amount of time, no technology. At some point, they can do it for their studies, bring out their computers. But certainly around the table, we do not allow phones. And so I hope you've seen that in the pictures, that there's not a lot of phones around the table. But she had her tablet out because we had gone through the scout. We were playing against a 3-6-1 box midfield, which I know is all the rage right now. It's not my favorite. But this is our center back, okay? This is X's and O's, teaching our mid, who had a really hard time understanding how we were going to defend in the midfield. And so there's football that goes on around the table too. Sometimes they use salt and pepper shakers, but they're having conversations. Again, that's where maybe the pursuing of excellence shows up in some of those spaces. So that's a bit about kind of the table for us and why it's important. I do want to go into maybe some questions for you guys as a takeaway. Oh, I'm doing pretty well. Okay, but I need to move a little bit quickly. I'm just going to ask you, maybe this is something you write down if you can't answer right now. What does your culture speak presently? Sorry, I didn't put that on there. What does your culture speak presently? And is it the outcome that you want? What does your culture speak presently, and is it the outcome that you want? And I know there's different people in different spaces in the room. Again, assistant coaches, head coaches who've been at programs a long time. You never know. Next year you might be in a different program, needing to kind of rethink your culture. But that's maybe the first question. So moving on to creating, I'd love to take you through creating, growing, and maintaining culture. And I'll try to move a little bit quickly. I'll have one question for you, and then maybe a quick story if I can get through it. Creating culture is, I have found to be really enjoyable and really, really hard. Really enjoyable and really, really hard. And I think you have to be able to answer this question. What do you feel so deeply convicted about? Because this is something you will have to teach every day and reteach. And it is the lens through which you will run your program or be an assistant in a program. So what do you feel so deeply convicted about that you can do it in sleep and that you're willing to fight for it? Because you will have to. Good culture, unity, those things do not just happen. You have to fight for them. And so what do you feel so deeply convicted about? Pursuit of excellence and deep care for people, it just runs in my veins. It is the way I was raised. It's the way that people who have influenced my life have impacted me. That is easy for me. And so to be able to share it all the time, I can feel very deeply convicted about. So when the behavior doesn't match, I can educate. Right? I don't have to worry about, have I not been clear, or, I'm changing too much of my culture. This is who we are, and it's easy to communicate. So that's my first question. What do you feel so deeply convicted about that you'd be willing to kind of fight for it every day? What has felt hard about creating culture to you? If I had more time, I would love to engage in these questions. What has felt hard about creating culture for you, and then how did you cast the vision for it? If I was sitting in your seat, I'd want a few like, hey, how'd you do it? So I'll offer a couple of those, but casting the vision, I was constantly bringing them back to it, celebrating the moments when they showed up. I think we talked about that a little bit today. Calling out the moments where there was resistance, and then bringing in the leaders that will help influence that. So my first year at my first coaching job, actually after my first fall, which was a 500 fall, good numbers after that, but my first head coaching was a 500 fall. I brought the group in that were going to be sophomores, and they were special. And I knew that at that time. I knew they were going to be heavily influential. They were going to play a lot, which carries a lot of weight. And I knew that they were great humans. So I brought them in and I said, hey, here's the deal. I believe we can do something very special here. So I'm going to relate it to Noah and the ark. Because I think that when Noah was building the ark and given that task, people probably came up and were like, strange, it's weird, it doesn't make sense, it's crazy. And we aren't being tasked with building the ark, but we are building something here. And people are going to look at you, other athletes, other programs, even potentially family, and they're going to go, you don't have to do it that way. You could slack a little in this way. But I promise you, if you will believe these things, the outcome will be amazing in the end. So I tried to get ahead of the things that might come up that would be hard. And that team took us to a national tournament final, that group of women. They were special in that way. The second story of a little bit of the creating, so this is at my current place at Point Loma. It's, I think, around year 2 or 3. And demand much, care deeply, right? Those two things. Those are the things that I'm trying to measure and figure out, like, how are we doing in them? And we're playing against a team in Hawaii. We have 3 schools in Hawaii. It sounds wonderful. It is not. As a coach, it's my least favorite trip for lots of various reasons. But one of the players, we were on a 32 game unbeaten streak in conference. And against our opponent, one of our athletes sees her in the bathroom after the game. And the player goes, how do you guys do it? How do you guys always win? Which I thought was like, wow, it's impressive you could ask that right after the game. And that player, without skipping a beat, she says, we have high expectation and we hold each other accountable to those. And I was like, demand much, like check, they're getting it. That was her first response. Fast forward, I make the hotel rooms. I often put players together that don't know each other as well or that I don't see interacting, because if you're going to have this passion to play for people next to you, you kind of got to know who they are. And because of these guys, we don't really know who each other are anymore. And so I intentionally put them with different types of people. In postseason, I asked them, hey, this is national tournament time. If you have someone you'd like to room with, shoot me a text. I'll do my best. Send me your top 2. I got 6 texts out of 25 that year. And every single one of them was like, can I room with so-and-so because I've never roomed with her. I don't know her. Can I room with so-and-so because I don't know her that well and I'd like to. And I was like, oh, caring about each other, like check, it's happening. And so those are 2 quick stories for creating. For the growing culture, and that was a little bit of that one, it's like okay, it's established, now what? Now what do we do? And I think what I have with that is, do you measure this currently? If you are kind of in the process of growing your culture, do you measure it? I think we measure a lot of the game. We measure a lot of the football. Do you measure your culture? How do you know if you're growing it well? How do you know if you're growing your culture well? For me, it was that pursuit of excellence and the deep care of people. And so the pursuing of excellence, the ways that I was looking for it to be measured were it being, and I felt very affirmed when Alan spoke last night, because for me it was about being player driven. Okay, is the team leading? At the start of every season, I try to ask the leadership, what are things we want to do differently? From warm-up to how we might engage in team life, whatever that might be, what do we want to do differently? And every year, there's one time where I come out before, it's like the last thing that happens before we take the field, I always come out. And every year, I'm like, you guys ready for me to stop doing that? Like thinking, this is your moment. Like if I'm in your shoes and I'm about to, like the whistle's about to blow, let's go us. Let's go all the people who are really, really involved in it. And every year it's like, no, we still want you to do it. I'm like, we need to break that at some point. It needs to be player-led, which it ended up being, but being player-led. For the caring and investing in, for me, it was actually a measurement of how long they lingered. How long they lingered. So are they, whether that's after training or at the house or in the spaces, how long are they lingering? I'm going to actually skip that piece. So real quickly, and I'll give you this video. This is a player who helped grow the culture, but also is a pretty cool story. So when I was recruiting her, So you don't have to be a Christian to go to Point Loma, but it is a part of the experience. So if that doesn't come up in the recruiting call, I always talk about it at the end. Like, hey, do you know? Like it's a pretty school, it's right on the water, it's good academics, it's competitive, and so sometimes that can be what draws people in and not the faith piece. So she had like a small group written on her questionnaire, and so I was like, hey, I'm making some assumptions that the faith piece matters to you based on the youth group you're going to, but do you have any questions regarding that? She's like, Coach, I'm agnostic. I believe there's a God, I'm just not sure what that looks like. And I was like, essentially like, why do you want to come to a Christian school? I didn't say that. I said, well, tell me more. Like, I'm really curious, why do you go to youth group? And she's like, because it's the best community I've ever been a part of. And I was like, dang, that's amazing. Okay, she's open. And the amount of conversations that I got to have with this player just about faith, really, she gets very stuck on the problem of evil and suffering. For her, that's a really big sticking point. But she does not like children. She'll talk to mine like an adult, doesn't really engage. Her mom doesn't want her to go to Africa. We have a service learning trip in Africa, and doesn't want her to go for safety reasons. Somebody brought up Enneagram earlier. Her mom's a 6, like risk averse, what's going to happen. And this is Mara in Kenya. This is a kid that does not like kids. Amazing. National championship, I know I'm trying to wrap up, but I do think, so talking about being player-led. So in the national tournament final, we have this center back. the one doing X's and O's earlier, breaks her leg. And in a prior game in Hawaii, another Hawaii trip year, she got injured, and so we had to slide our 6, this girl, the Africa girl, our 6 into the back line, and our 10 to our 6. And national tournament finals, same thing happens. She goes down right before halftime, so I'm like trying to get them like ready for my halftime talk, trying to get them motivated. You're gonna be fine, confident. The game's 0-0 at that point. So I go into the halftime talk and I'm like, okay, hey, we've done this before. Hawaii, you know, Gents was off, great, Mara slid in the back line, Grace was here, like, we're good. And they're like, yeah, we know. And I was like, player led, check, like, they don't need me. They were walking just fine. Like, we got this, we're fine, we need a goal. We need a goal to win the game, but we're all over them, we're gonna be fine. These 2 players, so this is the player that scored the game-winning goal, celebrating, and the one that went down, were players that didn't so much click. Respected each other, got along, but didn't so much click. She scores the goal, she runs over to her and said, that was for you, babe. And though, again, those are the stories that I think are so powerful, and the deep care for one another. How do you maintain culture? Last thing, I think for me, how do you stay sharp in this? How do you cover the blind spots? How do you not exhaust yourself? When Zidane was leaving Madrid in an interview, I think he said something along the lines of, I believe every few years, either the style has to change or the players have to change, and right now I think the players are good, so I'm gonna leave. I don't know if that's really why he was stepping down, but I love that about the college games, that the players change all the time. But how do you stay sharp in that? How do you keep culture going? I think consistency is important. I think being a storyteller. In the beginning, you're telling the story. When you're creating, you're telling the story of what you want it to be. In the end, you're telling the story of what it has been, and you're calling people in to tell that story with you. Last thing, really last thing this time. I do think, I want to say culture, creating it, growing it, maintaining it, certainly, I started with it, is hard. And so how do you rest your soul? And I think as coaches, honestly, how do we rest our souls in general? I mean, you are always, you're a pastor, you're a teacher, you're all the thing. I mean, Graham just took us through all the things that we are. And so how do you give rest for that? For me, it's my children and it's perspective. And so I hope you find that for yourself. I think some of you, I mean, I appreciate somebody I was talking to yesterday. I think this is a bit of encouragement for maybe where they're at and some things that they've been through. Maybe you're new to the coaching thing and it's some direction, but this is certainly a step for rest for the soul or energy for the soul. How do you keep your enthusiasm? I think you do have to keep some care for yourself in some ways. I thought I'd read it over us, but and for those that are online, reading over you as well. Just thank you guys, maybe on behalf of us, for your willingness to put this on and put the energy and effort that you do into it. At the start of each year, we have the retreat that I was talking about, and a woman on our campus read this over us each year, and I feel like it's a great takeaway. So I'd love to read it over us as a blessing. John O'Donohue, I'll put it in the Dropbox, but John O'Donohue, for those of you that don't know, he's an Irish writer. Not sure if he's a theologian, but he writes a lot of blessings for particular things. And this one's for a leader, and it lands with me every year, and every year some new line lands or resonates better than the other. So this will be our closing out. Okay. May you have the grace and wisdom to act kindly, learning to distinguish between what is personal and what is not. May you be hospitable to criticism. May you never put yourself at the center of things. May you act not from arrogance, but out of service. May you work on yourself, building up and refining the ways of your mind. May those who work for you know you see and respect them. May you learn to cultivate the art of presence in order to engage with those who meet you. When someone fails or disappoints you, may the graciousness with which you engage be their stairway to renewal and refinement. May you treasure the gifts of the mind through reading and creative thinking, so that you continue as a servant of the frontier, where the new will draw its enrichment from the old, and may you never become a functionary. May you know the wisdom of deep listening, the healing of wholesome words, the encouragement of the appreciative gaze, the decorum of held dignity, the springtime edge of the bleak question. May you have a mind that loves frontiers so that you can evoke the bright fields that lie beyond the view of the regular eye. May you have good friends to mirror your blind spots. May leadership be for you a true adventure of growth. And so, Lord, we lift those things before you. We thank you for the time to gather this weekend. May it be spread beyond this place. And may we stay connected until we meet again. In your name, amen.